Hi everyone, it is Brittany from Green Bee Flowers. If we haven't met before, I am a flower grower in Ontario, Canada in Zone 6A. I have been growing professional cut flowers now for 4 years, although I would say within the last 2 years is when we really became very serious about flower farming. So I'm sitting at the kitchen table talking to you guys today just because it is raining outside. It's actually much needed rain and you can hear my tiny human in the background. So much needed rain. We've had a very, very dry June. June just kind of disappeared. We did a lot in June and it just kind of flew by. So I had planned to upload videos of, our June flower subscriptions, which were peonies. I had planned to upload more video content about preparing for some of our June weddings, and of course none of that happened because I got busy, and sometimes it's hard to remember to roll the camera when you're just trying to get the tasks done. Now that said, we are fully into July blooms now, so you've seen the intro to the video there. We are pulling off tons of snapdragons, and I've talked a little bit about on our Instagram account about how last year snapdragons were a bit of a farm fail for us, and for no good reason. I know how to grow snapdragons. We just had a very warm spring again last year, and I did not get them planted out in time to get good blooms, and I did not start as many. I think we had about 500 snapdragons started last year, which meant that they got forgotten about. They didn't get netted properly. We were focused on other crops. This year, however, I decided that success in quantity. We planted something like 2,500 snapdragons, and I would say that overall that was that's been a successful crop for us. Now, the challenge with snapdragons is that they do need a lot of water, and it has been a dry June, so we have been out at least once a week to twice a week kind of supplementing the water, because otherwise with snapdragons, if you don't give them enough water, the tops of the snaps get really small, they don't produce blooms all the way up, and they just kind of blow out on the bottom. They don't have as long of a vase life. So that was at least a good part, I think, of this spring, but also challenging in a different way, right? Ranunculus and anemone season is definitely over, so we've pulled out all of the ranunculus, we have pulled out most of the anemones, and we are actually just replanting our backyard plot right now with some vegetables for the summer, so green beans, because they're easy and you can start them this late and you'll still have a crop, right? We are almost fully done planting the farm. The last of the sunflower succession, the zinnia succession, the cosmos succession, we have some starts yet of some scabiosa and gomphrena and one other thing. Status, I think, that still need to go in. And those I'm comfortable planting now because it's about 6 weeks usually from the time that they go into the ground until the time that we start to get blooms from them. So the ones that we had put in already on May long weekend, we are starting to harvest stems of, status and gomphrena now. But by succession planting them, I'm able to actually coordinate and make sure that I am planting enough cut flowers to grow through the season. Now, because it's been so dry, last year we had a great dahlia season. Probably this time last year we were starting to pull off our first dahlia blooms. This year the dahlias have been a little bit delayed in the field, which isn't bad. It's just, I think from year to year we forget as farmers that things are going to change. So you can't necessarily have the expectation that something's going to bloom at the exact same week as it did last year. You can plan to your heart's content, but if you don't have the proper weather, you're not going to get the big luxurious blooms early on in the season. You're going to be waiting a couple more weeks. And so that's kind of where we are with the dahlias right now. I expect we'll start to see some of our first blooms within the next couple weeks, but it is definitely a little bit later than it was last year. That said, what we did end up planning for this year that I haven't done in the past is a whole section of perennial. Delphinium, foxglove, larkspur. We have thistle, so sea holly, planted this year for the first time. These are flowers that we haven't grown before, but starting to build up some of that perennial patch has actually been very successful for us because we have had flowers that we haven't had in this time in years past. So I've always found, you know, in the farming side of things, because, and I've talked about this before, we run as like a flower studio and a farm, so I do have a wholesaler that I'm able to purchase other local blooms from, but I've always found that you know, time space between the end of peony season and the beginning of sunflower season to be a bit of a dead zone. But that's the point where in my zone where a lot of the perennials are blooming really well. You know, so this year, for the first year, we've had a lot of success with a big white ball hydrangea that I've been growing in our front bed now for, this probably its 5th year there, and it's finally at the point where it's established and it's putting off blooms that are big enough that I can use in bouquets, and also healthy enough. In the past, you know, July can be so dry. This year it's been very humid, so the air's been moist. So hydrangeas, if you don't know, uptake a lot of moisture actually through their leaves as well as, you know, through their roots. They like a lot of water. We haven't had the same sort of like burning on the leaves that we, or the blooms that we've had in the past, and so I've had a lot of usable stems from them. And for the first time, our dogs haven't walked through my entire patch of yarrow in the backyard, so I've had a really successful late June, early July crop of summerberry yarrow, which is a first for me as well. Another success story for us is, instead of weeding back my perennial sweet peas, because if you are a grower and you have perennial sweet pea in your garden, you know it can take over. This is the first year I just let it go and I didn't cut anything back. And that has actually been extremely useful for us because we have been cutting perennial sweet peas to use in our market bouquets, which has provided a lot of really interesting foliage, but it's also provided some very, very beautiful, you know, pink purple blooms, which have filled the bouquets out in a really nice way and provided a lot of interest, and that has been really popular with our customers. An absolute pain to harvest, right? Because sweet peas, like regular peas, also like vine and like attach to each other. So McKenna has become a little bit of an expert in harvesting sweet peas this year, so she's really taken that on. Another success for us this year has actually been feverfew. I did not have a large feverfew crop last year, but I did really like the ones that I had grown. So we had ordered 2 new varieties this year through Johnny's Seed. One variety, which was I think called a snowdrop variety, it did not germinate at all, but the tetra variety of feverfew really, really bloomed wonderfully. And we've gotten probably, you know, 200 stems off of the 100 plants that I put in. And that will come back next year, right? So feverfew in our climate can be perennialized. So some careful work in making sure that we're covering it with some straw just to give it a little bit of, you know, extra insulation through the winter means that that's a crop that will come back stronger next year as well. And that's really exciting. It's been a process of learning, but I think flower farming, you know, really, really is a constant learning curve. It's been interesting too this year, I think, to go back and just look at how far we've come in all of these different years, right? Like going back and looking at photos from when we first started, I was cutting, you know, from a really, really small patch that I'd had in our backyard with just some zinnias and some dahlias, and I think I'd planted some celosia. And like, that's really the point where you fall in love with flowers and you realize that other people also love the flowers that you're growing. And as we've, you know, come through the last 4 years, you know, with COVID and with changes, I think, globally to the flower industry as well, it really opened up a lot of opportunity for my passion for flowers in this area, and that was really exciting. And so we spent a good chunk of 2020 just learning how to flower farm. You know, we've shown you footage of the beds that we have at Green Door Gardens, and the first year we were only growing in 2 of those beds. So the addition last year of a 3rd bed and this year of the 4th bed, plus all of that extra growing space at the old drive plot, which again, we, you know, did not have that up until 2021, has been an absolute game changer for our farm, and has really kind of given us the ability to plan into the future as well, which I'm quite excited about. So what we were able to do this year was actually make a really, really exciting and big investment. We purchased our very first hoop house. It is a Gothic style because I do live in Canada and we do get snow, so Gothic style is just going to assist with, you know, not having to perpetually be cleaning snow off the top, because it kind of comes up to a point like this. But investing in that hoop house as well is going to be a huge game changer for us going into 2023, because we had such success with our tulip crops this year. The wholesaler loved them, our customers loved them, that we're going to actually be able to start tulips in the greenhouse earlier for 2023. Similarly, we are going to be putting in a fall crop of ranunculus into the hoop house so that I can hopefully able to have ranunculus into October and November of 2022, and then we will be able to start pre-sprouted ranunculus and anemones into our greenhouse already, hopefully in February in 2023, which is going to give us a much longer season. Our goal long term is to be able to have, you know, at least 10 months of flowers. I would like to have local floral from, you know, March 1st all the way to December. That's a really tough thing to do in my climate, but I think with a little bit of ingenuity and the ability to grow into the old drive plot is going to make that a long-term viable option for our flower farm, and that's really, really exciting. Now, when I talk about our flower farm, I have a really, really wonderful team, and so I accredit a lot of our success to their devotion as well. And you know, they are so motivated to make sure that the flower farm succeeds long term, that they're able to see kind of like their future into it as well. So that's kind of what's been going on. June was really a lot of moving parts, and as we get into July, I'm hoping to be able to keep footage updated a little bit more. The videos might not be as long as they have been, simply because, you know, time constraints as we get into the busyness of the summer, but I do very much want to be able to keep you all updated on the progress of the farm, because I feel like this community we're creating on YouTube, you know, I didn't start the YouTube channel as a new flower farm, as just a diary of how our farm works. I started the YouTube channel already having experience as a flower farmer, you know, doing this for a couple years before starting the YouTube channel, and I actually didn't discover a lot of the other floral flower farmer YouTubers until I had already created our own channel. Interestingly enough, YouTube studio and content creating was something I'd been exposed to in a completely different part of my life. I actually have a cousin who does woodworking, and he has a very successful channel as well. And I was kind of intrigued by that idea as a parent of a special needs child. Finding ways to have, you know, supplementary income into your life is always important, because with every kid, but also I think more so with special needs kids, you really realize how useful passive income streams are, but also, you know, they have so many more needs than a regular child. Like we're at a point right now in our own life where we have to make some decisions around our home, simply because our home is from the 1960s. It's built for people in the 1960s, which doesn't make it super accessible, meaning that like my child's wheelchair can't fit in our hallway, right? Our hallway is too narrow, and he can't physically get in his wheelchair from our kitchen to his bedroom. Interesting things like that. It makes me really excited about, I think, what's to come. It's not something that I believe I've talked a lot about on our YouTube channel. I've really kept a lot of our videos very flower oriented, not talked a lot about my life behind the scenes, and there's reason for that. Obviously, I want to protect my tiny human's privacy as well. He has a genetic disorder that has a high infant mortality rate, and that makes him kind of a miracle, but it also makes him pretty interesting. And so protecting his privacy as well as a child that doesn't have the ability to consent to being in photos or online is important to me as a parent, which is why you don't see a lot of him. We don't talk about his story, even though, you know, having him is a huge part of the reason why we started flower farming in the first place. And that is a video that I do want to make, and I might actually do that as our first live. So if that's something that you're interested in listening to, wanting to hear how, you know, I started flower farming, let me know in the comments below if that's something that you guys are interested in. All of that said, it has been an exciting year so far for the farm. I am so thankful that all of you are here. We have introduced, and by we, I mean me, just, you know, the plural of me, myself, and I, introduced memberships to the channel as well. I would eventually like to do some how-to videos on properly growing certain flowers. I do think that's a skill that I have to offer. Now, interestingly enough, flower farming is not my area of study. I have a degree in English, like lit theory and history and philosophy. But I really didn't go to school for a job, right? I wasn't one of those types of people who went to school just to get a job. I went to school because I wanted to learn, and through that I was able to be introduced to a lot of environmentalist writers, and that's really kind of where I became interested, I think, in the environment. And you know, I've heard Common Farm Flower says this a lot, that she wants to save the world through flowers, and I feel that deep in my soul, as I think that flower farmers as a whole, especially new flower farmers, we have an opportunity to right a wrong. And I think there's a lot of YouTubers on the internet who are starting to grapple with their, you know, environmental impact and the long-term change that they can make through flower farming. So, and just farming in general, right? You see this through Roots and Refuge, you see this in Whispering Willow. Like, there's a lot of conversation happening, I think, around homesteaders and farmers about sustainability long term. And so that's a really, you know, fascinating world to be a part of. And the community of farming and flower farming is a very supportive one. So it's really wonderful to be a part of that. So that's really all I have for you today. I know this isn't a lot of like picking flowers footage, but I did, you know, want to kind of update you guys on what's been going on in our lives, where we're kind of headed this summer, where we're headed next year. There's a lot of really cool and, you know, long-term goals that we are working towards, and so I am excited for where the farm is going. I want to thank you all for being here. If you want to join the channel as a member, it'll give you some exclusive access to, you know, our how-to videos, which aren't going to be accessible to, you know, regular YouTube subscribers. And I'm excited as well to share some of my knowledge, because as I said, I'm not, you know, a brand new flower farmer. And even when I started farming, I've got growing flowers and gardening in my blood. It was something I was taught how to do as a child. So there is lots that I can share, and I'm kind of excited to do that. If you are interested in following along on that, definitely grab a membership to the channel. Otherwise, I want to thank you guys all so much for being here. Let me know what you would like some of the topics for me to cover on lives to do, if you enjoy this just kind of like chatting back and forth the way I'm doing right now. And then hopefully over the course of the next week, you know, I've got lots being picked. We have our July flower subscriptions going out. We have weddings the next 2 weeks. So I will definitely be doing more, making more of a concerted effort to grab some of that footage so that you can see, you know, how we actually make the business work on a week-to-week basis when things get so busy, and just to like see my design style when I'm doing weddings and like all that kind of stuff, because I've gotten really great feedback on that in the past, and I think that's something where, you know, farmer floristry, the floristry side of the flower farming is where I really do enjoy the process, and that's again something that I can teach and offer. So if you'd like to continue to follow along our flower journey, if you've been watching this video and you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button to our channel. Be sure to like the video because it definitely helps our channel out a lot. Leave a comment if there's anything you'd like to know. And otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.